Hi everybody, and welcome back to your Design to Move series. My name is Ryan Maxwell. We have Ryan Parr. We're two movement specialists here at Fluid Health and Fitness. And today we're going to go into a condition called Ankylosing Spondylitis. That's a mouthful. It took me several weeks to learn how to say that out loud. But it is a medical condition that has to do with the arthritic condition of the spine and pelvis. As a youngster or even an adolescent, we can start to develop chronic inflammation at the joints that meet up between our pelvis and our sacrum, or the lower portion of our spine, and that feed into the vertebrae over the course of so many years or decades. It can also impact the knees, the eyesight, a lot of other areas in the body, and it's considered a rheumatoid arthritis condition. So there's ligaments between the vertebrae that will actually start to calcify or harden, and the discs between the vertebrae will start to condense or even erode or start to calcify themselves and hold that flexible spine in a mobile condition. Now, because of that, global movement is going to be disrupted, and it can lead to issues in other areas of the body. This is going to be an in-depth tutorial on this condition. If you want to skip ahead, we have a condensed version of this with the exercises and the acute variable selections, the reps and the sets at the end. So go ahead and jump to it if you've already watched this. If you want more information, again, we have a blog on the topic, so we're going to give you some written information on it. And today we're going to go into a more detailed explanation as we break down each of these release strategies and exercise selections. So on that note, Ryan, what is it that we're going to be doing today?
Specifically, we're going to be addressing the posture that you would normally see when your feet turn out and your lumbar starts to flatten and reduce, and then you actually get an excessive kyphosis, so increased curve of the middle back. And the muscles that are primarily responsible for that are your external rotators, the glutes, so we're going to release those. We're also going to work on the pecs, which pull those shoulders forward and help out with excessive kyphosis in the middle back. We're going to activate your adductors, which are the muscles on the inside of the thigh that actually resist against those external rotators. We're going to work on activating our inner unit and being able to control it. We're going to finish out with the prone cobra with activation of the retractors in the shoulder and extension out of the spine, making sure that we only work to a range of motion that we are comfortable in.
Yeah, no, normally, again, ankylosing spondylitis, or AS, you'll see exercises out there on the internet that promote extension, where you'll see hip extension with a co-contraction of the opposite arm and flexion. So you get that extension out of the spine, and we have to be mindful of what the condition is at its state. So we want to make sure, again, that we work within the ranges of motion that are appropriate and that are pain-free, while coordinating the central nervous system, how to make these movements happen so we can increase our quality of life. Right?
Exactly.
So a lot to go over today, lots of great information. If you have, again, questions, feel free to reach out to us at admin@fluidhealthandfitness.com. And with that, let's get right into our mobility. The first set of muscles is going to be the lateral rotators of the hips that are going to be released. We're going to show you how to use a self-massage technique called active release. And we have two different tools to do the job. One is our fluid fascia release ball. It's tacky and grippy. And then we have a lacrosse ball. The tennis ball would work too, but I found that with clients, if we use the tennis ball, it kind of slips all over the place. And we normally want to be on a hard surface or a harder surface when we do this, so we get some traction. So the tennis ball kind of gets squirrely, so we like to use this one. Now the reason why we have two different balls, one is because the surface area is broader on the bigger ball, so there's less pounds per square inch, so it may not be as acute. We're going to use this to push into the muscle belly, and if the muscle is too spasmed or too hyperactive, if it's too acute, it might guard and create what's called a myotatic reflex and shrink up on you, and that actually does the opposite of what we're trying to accomplish. So bear in mind that there is a couple reasons why we would want to go with a broader ball as opposed to a smaller ball. Now again, the problem with this is that if we use the broader ball, and you'll see here shortly, it's going to boost the hips up, almost bolster the hips up, and that might put your back into excess flexion or even extension depending upon the distortions that might be present. So we want to be careful of that as we're trying to protect the spine. So what we're going to do is get them down on the ground. And remember, we're going to be targeting this outer lateral sweep of the hip. And Ryan's going to show you how to get into it, and he's going to use the lacrosse ball for this one. he's gonna place the ball under his glute, basically, or his butt muscle, and it's just adjacent to this little hip bone right on the side of the hip called the trochanter. It's a portion of the femur bone. It's gonna be behind it or underneath of it on the lateral side of his body. And do you feel that, Ryan?
Oh yeah.
Yep. So once the ball is placed right under the butt, and pretty much you'll know right away on that outer lateral, you'll feel it pretty quick, right? Mm-hmm. Once we have that, he's gonna take the leg and drape it over the opposite leg. When he does that, it's basically starting to stretch the glute muscles or the external rotators, and it's going to start to pull the leg across, or he would start to pull the leg across. And as he does that, he'll feel an increase in the stretch on that ball, okay? So the couple things to think about. If the muscle's tight and he pulls the leg across and it doesn't want to give him any more range of motion, it's gonna start to pull through his spine and twist his spine inward. So that inflare will basically grip the muscle that attaches from the femur to the pelvis and start to pull and twist through the spine. We don't want to do that, okay? We want to immobilize the spine. So he's going to make sure he keeps his abs engaged, and you can do that by breathing out. A lot of people like to use cues like pull your belly button in. I prefer to use my breath as the cue. If I breathe out deeply, as deep as you can, you'll notice that your abs start to flex, contract, and you may even notice that your hips will rotate under subtly. That's a good thing. You want to maintain that tonic pressure, hold it there, and then after you've sat on that ball for about 30 to 60 seconds, he's been on it for about a minute and a half now, right? You would start to floss that leg across. And once again, bear in mind we want to keep the abdominals engaged to maintain the level pelvis, and then draw the leg across as he slides that leg through, and he's gonna bring it across the leg, almost like a scissor, right? It's gonna pull the muscle through the pressure of the ball and floss it. That's gonna help to break open, hopefully, some collagen or protein cross bindings, or help to release whatever spasm muscle might be there because their nervous system is guarding, okay? So again, you can go through a couple different cycles, stay on the ball for about 30 to 60 seconds, and then breathe out and slide the leg across. Breathe in, bring it across. Breathe out, bring it across. Breathe in, bring it down and through. So this is again an example of what's called an active release technique using a lacrosse ball, a tennis ball, or again, you could use our fluid fascia release ball. But either way, the goal is to increase the extensibility of the lateral rotators or external rotators of the femur and the hip. You do about 6 to 10 breathing cycles, and then you could switch to the other side. So now that we've got the hips open, we're gonna go up to the upper portion of our body, and we're gonna start attacking the pecs. Let's get right to it. Pec major attaches the sternum to the arm, and when it flexes or facilitates, it pulls the arm internally, and it can pull the whole shoulder shelf with it. And that helps again to lead to that excess kyphosis or C-spine. So we're going to use our fascia release ball, the fluid fascia release ball. You can buy one of these on our website if you click on the link. But it's going to be right in the belly of the muscle. And a lot of times people are confused about where to place the ball. Generally speaking, if you start at the apex of where the muscle attaches and go outward from medial to lateral, you'll find a little tender spot. It could be a spasm, it could be a fascial bundle, it could be both. Either way, you're going to want to place the ball on that adhesive spot and then put pressure on it. We're going to do that with body weight, and then Ryan's going to talk us through that option as we go through the corrective release. Okay, so I'm going to lay down on the table, and Ryan, what do we do here?
All right, first thing is you want to find the position where you have that nice tender spot going out from the sternum towards the shoulder. And once you find that spot, we can let the arm lay back relaxed, and then from there we're bringing that opposite arm up and around, and we're placing the head on top of the fist to reduce the pressure in the neck. From there, you can start to move the opposite side leg out into abduction. And that will increase the amount of pressure that you're putting onto that pec major muscle. From there, you'll give it about 30 to 60 seconds to allow that muscle to start to relax and not to hold and grip. And then from there, once you start to feel some of the release from the ball, then you're gonna breathe out and you're gonna subtly turn your palm up and reach forward. Going until you feel a slight bit of shrugging in the shoulder. We want to stop right before that happens, only working through a range of motion where you can keep that joint in a stable position. So he's exhaling as he's reaching up, making sure the shoulder doesn't shrug, inhaling, laying it back down, and then sinking deeper into the muscle. From there, you want to do about 6 to 8 reps to get a good release out of that muscle. And then we're gonna work on to the next one.
Awesome, feels great. Yeah, so like Ryan said, we wanna make sure that we don't let the shoulder shrug. That's the important key point here. As you draw the arm up, if the muscle's too tight, it's gonna distort the joint, and then you actually start to compress and you create more inflammation in that joint. So again, if we're dealing with rheumatoid type arthritis, where the body's chronically attacking itself, we don't want to damage the joints by compressing any further than we need to. So be careful while you do this, and then let's go into our activation. Now we're switching gears to activating deficient muscle groups. So the one that we're going to target today is the adductor complex of the lower body. Muscles can abduct the appendages away from the body, and they can adduct and bring the appendages closer to the body. Now we talked about how the legs externally rotate, creating gripping around the pelvis, pulling it under, thereby distorting the lordotic curvature of the spine. We're going to work the muscles that pull it inward internally, the adduction, bringing it to the midline, and then getting those guys stronger. So the exercise that we've chosen for that is called an adductor roll. It's a really simple, isolated way of targeting these muscle groups. And the challenge is going to be able to keep your abs and your butt working with these adductors together. So we're going to try to talk you through the nuances of that position. So to get there, Ryan's going to lay on the table. Again, all of this is on the table. We realize you probably don't have a table at home. It makes this really convenient for us to shoot this video, but for you, you can do it on the ground, on a mat. And again, we just want to make sure that it's comfortable for you. So I'm going to use this foam roller as a bolster to keep his hip up so that we don't put too much pressure into his opposite hip. This is not the leg that we're going to be targeting. So I'm going to lay that here. Ryan's going to bring his leg up and basically booster this. I'm going to have him lift it up a little bit, Ryan. Thank you, sir. And he's laying his whole tibia and knee on this. If we went off like this, his leg could externally rotate, and that could actually flex that muscle, which is gonna actually work against what we're trying to do. So I wanna make sure that there's a broad enough surface here that his tibia lays on this and then it's not rotated, okay? So first thing, we're gonna position the hips so that they're nice and neutral. So Ryan, why don't you scooch forward a little bit? He's a big guy here, so this table is almost too small for him. And you're gonna also notice that his head is gonna be centered on his body. So I want him to lift his head up a little bit more, tuck his chin, and make sure that his nose is in line with his sternum, so his body is straight in line with his spine. And he can do that with his hand by bracing the head, and he's gonna tuck his head back. There you go. He's gonna keep his shoulders up over his pelvis so it's nice and straight there. So if you saw him from up top, his AC joint, his shoulder, would be stacked right with his hip, right with his ankle down here. So a nice straight line, okay? Now from here, we're gonna work the muscles on the inside of the thigh. He's first gonna straighten that knee out into extension, pull his toe up into dorsiflexion, and he's gonna flex these muscles by lifting the leg up into the air. He's gonna internally rotate his toe towards the ceiling. He's gonna flex his abdominals to stabilize his pelvis. And then he's gonna breathe out and draw the leg back, flexing the glute to pull the leg back. From there, he's gonna bring it back to neutral, breathe in, and slowly let the leg come back down. Now again, if there's too much tension in the lateral rotators of that leg on the ground, when he lifts it up, it might actually start to pull his torso off the table or off the ground, especially as he lets it go down and he doesn't have enough abdominal strength. His lower back will start to arch. This is telling us again what? That his body is being distorted because the tension of those lateral rotators is so great that it pulls the pelvis under and creates a C curve of the spine on a lateral plane. We don't want to do that. So once again, I know that's kind of kind of detailed here, but we want to make sure that we don't arc laterally through our spine when we lift our leg up or down. Very important. If you see that, do not move through the leg, okay, or reduce the range of motion. Make sense, Ryan? Okay, so let's show him a couple examples. He's gonna breathe out, get those abdominals to fire, lift the leg up into adduction, internally rotate, keep his glute flexed, pull the leg back into extension, come back up to neutral, and then slightly let it come down. Now for you guys at home, what we want you to do is make sure that as you do this, once again, stabilize the spine, co-contract the glute, and as you let the leg come down, let it come down slowly, and don't rest completely at the bottom. You'll start to feel it in the inner thigh, back underneath the glute or the butt, and again around the glute itself. So this is a way of teaching your body how to co-contract the hip extensors, your butt muscles, with the groin and the adductors, and basically teach you how to glide your leg back in its basically stance phase of gait. So if I put my weight into my heel and I draw my leg back as I take a step forward, we want to learn how to contract the internal muscles with the glute so that the legs don't bow open and create excess in sweep, out sweep of the pelvis rotating into the spine. So good job, Ryan. You would want to do 2 sets of about 20 repetitions, slow controlled movement. If you start to break down in your alignment of your spine, if you start to bend the knee, if you start to kick or use momentum, these are all indicators that you would want to stop. Again, use controlled movement. If that means 5 reps, start with 5 and you can work your way up to 20. Precision is key on this one. All right, let's get to the next movement. This next movement is a functional integration. This is a repositioning of the lower body through the co-contraction of the medial hamstrings and the transverse abdominis while moving the upper body into a flexion extension position. That's a lot of gobbledygook for most people who don't study anatomy on the daily. But what it really means is that we're trying to teach certain muscles how to contract in an order or sequence that's appropriate for function so that they all work the way they're supposed to maintain the alignment of the legs and the pelvis and the spine. Okay, so what we want to do first off to get into position is bring our body to the wall, and you're going to bring your legs up to 90 degrees at the knees, and we want to center our heels on the wall and internally rotate our toes subtly. Okay, I'm also going to use the foam roller again as a bolster, so he's going to squeeze this. Now remember, we just went through internal rotation or adduction of the humerus, or not the humerus, but the femur, which is why we want this again. So I'm gonna bring this down a little bit and squeeze. So same muscle groups, right? Internal rotators, adductors, they're gonna be contracted. So what I wanna do is plant my heels, push down subtly through my heels until I feel my hips come up just a little bit. By pulling the toes in, I'm going to start to use some of the medial hamstrings, which are traditionally deficient, especially when my legs are opened up and externally rotated. So we want to turn those on together. Now by doing that, it sets my pelvis up into a nice neutral position. From there, we're going to draw our arms up to about a press position about 90 degrees. So this is all relative to your range of motion in the shoulder. If you have advanced stages of that excess kyphosis, the shoulders will most likely be in an internally rotated position and an inferiorly dropped position, meaning the gap between the head of the humerus and the shoulder joint is going to be compressed or limited, and that may lead to some impingement as you draw your arms over your head. So that is going to be a limiting factor, and you're going to want to be aware of that and never move your arms past a range of motion that exhibits pain. Okay, so remember that as we go through this. First thing now to get in position is to squeeze the roller, plant the heels, push down subtly, and breathe all the air out of your lungs. When you do that, you're going to get your rib cage to descend or protract, and you'll notice that the lower back is going to come in contact with the ground. If you have that excess kyphosis, this is going to feel comfortable for you. What we're going to do is challenge you to open up through the spine while still maintaining that flexed position through the abdominals. So Ryan's going to breathe out, draw his arms over the head, again, only going to the point of pain-free movement until he starts to feel his lower back start to come off the ground just subtly. We want the curvature of the spine to be that of what it would be upright in a neutral posture if you were to be standing up, which is about 20 to 30 degrees of convexity, or again, internal arch. Okay, so what that means is as he draws his arms down, he's breathing out, contracting his abdominals, but still going to that arch in the lower back, only moving the arm to that first point of resistance, no pain, breathing in, and then coming back up with the arms. This is a real quick way of setting up the entire body, the central nervous system, to work with the muscles that are going to help to maintain the lumbopelvic stability, or again, the legs within the pelvis, and the pelvis, again, learning how to stabilize itself with the spine. As he breathes in, he draws the arms up. As he breathes out, to a count of 4, he's slowly bringing his arms back. What he's going to look for is an increase in range of motion every time he breathes out. It'll go deeper and deeper and deeper. Okay, and you should see if he can still keep that arch only again about 20-30 degrees. Okay, go ahead and stop here, Ryan. Couple key points. We want to maintain the flexion of those inner thigh muscles as we breathe in. So as you breathe in, draw the arms up and squeeze the roller. As you breathe out, draw the arms back. But notice that if you bring your arms back and your neck starts to extend excessively and you feel pressure, which a lot of you might have, excess lordosis in the cervical spine, you may want to tuck a couple towels under the head. On that, a quick takeaway for posture. If you have this excess kyphosis in the spine, you're probably going to want to look at your pillow selection and how you sleep. If it's excessively stuffed and your neck is put into this excess flexion, it'll draw the thoracic spine with it and actually emphasize that posture, thereby increasing the extra pressure on the spine. So you're going to want to reduce that. Make sure you keep your head in line with your spine. Don't let it hyperextend, or don't tuck it so deeply that the shoulders roll forward. Make sure you set a nice level set with some towels and keep that head protected. The rep range would be about 20. We're going to do 2 sets of those, and you notice the time under tension, it was a slow opening and then a controlled closure. Protect yourself, and again, only go within your protected range of motion. Let's move on to the next one. The last exercise that we're going to do today is a strength movement called a cobra. This is going to be the culmination of everything that we've done up to this point. We have to maintain the natural curvature of the lumbar spine and protect that portion of the spine, basically from the pelvis to the rib cage, while teaching the upper body to come up into an extended position. The way that we can protect the spine is by breathing out to flex our abdominals and hold our rib cage down while we draw our arms around the thoracic portion of our spine, the rib cage. So Ryan's going to breathe out, pull his tummy down just a little bit, or pull his hips under, and then at the same time he's going to draw his arms back and roll them around the rib cage. Think of your rib cage like a ball, and you've got 2 suction cups that are rolling around it. We have a posterior glide when your arms come around, and then you get this anterior glide as they glide around the ball back towards the table. You'll notice that if you have a tendency to overuse your lower back, you're going to start to arch excessively, and Ryan, let's show him what not to do, and lift from the lower back. Now, if you already have been in this position of excess kyphosis for a long time, that actually might be a dangerous position to be in, so you're going to want to protect yourself. One more time, engage your abdominals by breathing out, holding that pressure first, and then draw your arms around. If you notice that the shoulders start to shrug up or internally rotate, that's too far. You've dissociated at the shoulder joint and you're starting to use muscles that feed up into the neck, which would most likely surface as excess extension. So 2 things that you don't want to do is hyperextend through the neck or hyperextend through the lower back. Both of these lordotic portions of your spine need to be neutral, meaning the chin should be tucked. You might have a double chin. The head should be in line with the thoracic portion, and your lower back should be tucked under with a little bit of tension from your abdominals so that you focus on the internal and external rotation of the shoulder joint around the rib cage. So Ryan, give him a few clean repetitions. He's going to breathe out, flex his abdominals, pull his arms around the rib cage like 2 suction cups around a ball, and then breathe in and slowly let them glide anteriorly back down to the ground. You'll notice that he's leading through his shoulder blade first. The shoulders will lift, compress, and then the arm will come with it. If you notice that the arm comes first, so Ryan, show him what that looks like. The arm would come up and then the shoulder, that's it telling you again that you're using the wrong mechanics here. So we don't want the arm to come and then the shoulder. We want to lead with the shoulders first, and then the arm will come along for the ride. It's a slow, controlled movement. He's bringing it up for a count of 1 and then slowly coming down to a count of 4, and again controlling the glide of the arms around the rib cage. Being able to learn how to maintain the posture of the shoulders in that upright and fixed position with the posterior glide and depression around a nice centered spinal column around your lumbar with your ribs right over it is the beginning of establishing your core and maintaining the tension relationships that will help to provide a healthy spine. We were going to want to do 2 sets of these for about 20 repetitions, and just like the other exercises, if you notice that you fatigue or you start to show the compensation patterns that we described before you get through the 20 reps, make sure to stop. You can always work your way up to that rep range. That brings us to the end of that segment of this workout. That brings us to the end of our video tutorial on ankylosing spondylitis. This is a chronic condition that impacts a lot of people, so we hope you got some useful information out of this that you can put into your everyday life. And if you do this on a regular basis, you should start to see a noticeable increase in quality of movement and by extension quality of life. If you have questions, again, reach out to us at admin@fluidhealthandfitness.com. Remember, we do have a blog on this, so we go into a more detailed description of all these issues, how to prevent them, how to assess your posture, and again, we hyperlink this video in that outline as well for your reference. Again, we have the condensed version of this whole tutorial in snippets at the end of the video, so keep an eye out for that. And as always, we always say your body's designed to move, so stay in motion. So thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next week for another edition of Design to Move. Talk to you soon.